recapping week 8 of college football and how it impacts the top 10 quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL draft class. Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers all took a tumble down our rankings. We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen to day and every day. Shout out for being our every day. As you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side of this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every single podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. Today's show, we're starting with our weekly quarterback rankings, and I'm going to tell y'all right now, you're going to want to stick around because there's some big shakeups from top to bottom. Then we're going to talk about our classic segment, man. Money makers, bag fumblers. DP always says is right, stock up, stock down. Which prospect made him some money? Which prospects lost him some money? And then you're going to get your weekly appearance from Coach K, Coach DP. We hopping into the locker rooms, and we giving out those game balls to the best performers. DP, I mean, if you could tell in my voice, man, I'm ready to have this conversation. Let's get this show started.
Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. Keith, you alluded to it, right? Shake up in our top 10 from top to bottom. At number 1, kind of standing pat with number 1 and number 2, Cam Ward from Miami, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. Number 3, Cade Klubnik from Clemson. Number 4, Kyle McCord from Syracuse. Number 5, Drew Aller from Penn State. Number 6, Carson Beck from Georgia. Number 7, Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Number 8, Curtis Rourke from Indiana. Number 9, Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. At number 10, Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Keith, I want to start right in that kind of, we had 3 guys basically fall down this list. Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers. Carson Beck is the only one out of the 3 that actually walked out of week 8 with a win. But he wasn't good in the win. They won in spite, despite of Carson Beck's performance. 0 touchdowns thrown with 3 interceptions. And I want to go to Quinn Ewers, Keith. And I want to go back. You know, remember over the summer, NCAA 25 dropped, right? Everybody was playing it. You know, I got a PS5. I was rebuilding different schools, Keith, Hawaii, Coastal Carolina, all that. But one trend I kept seeing, and I was trying to figure out why the algorithm kept doing it. Quinn Ewers kept staying for his senior season. Almost every franchise I did, every team I picked, Quinn Ewers didn't leave after his junior year. He stayed at Texas for an extra year. He didn't leave to the 2026 NFL draft. I don't know if the algorithm from the video game knew something, but it feels like it knew something, Keith, because we talked about this on Friday. We gave him a mulligan for week 7, right? Just came off like a 3-week absence because of the oblique injury. You got to knock off the rust. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. You couldn't play the way you played against Oklahoma, against Georgia. We said that on Friday. Quinn Ewers goes into Saturday and plays worse than he did against Oklahoma. And one thing that I kept seeing from Quinn and why he's at 10 in this thing for me, the inability to move in the pocket. Like, he's not like, I'm going to say this, guys. Kelvin Banks is about to get a bad rep for this game. Like, but it wasn't Kelvin Banks' problem. Like, Kelvin Banks was handling his business against Michael for the most part, against Jalen Walker. If your quarterback steps up, I can wash my guys around the arc. But when you got a quarterback that's standing flat-footed in the pocket, deep in the pocket, and then you try to climb late, all those guys do is then they see you and they retrace their steps and they get to you. He put his tackles in bad positions. He wasn't pushing the ball down the field. The interception was easy to read. The DB's just sitting, like showing cover 3, but he's actually squatting on the outbreaker, waiting for it because he knows Quinn Ewers doesn't push the ball down the field, even with the speed they have. I was hoping to see Michigan Quinn Ewers, the guy we saw against Michigan, just dial it up, be on time, accurate, get the ball in the intermediate part of the field, create some explosives. We didn't see that, Keith.
No, we didn't. And I want to. So Quinn is one conversation. I kind of want to have this conversation. Maybe did we just from this past weekend, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, right? Did those guys solidify themselves as second round prospects, right? Like, and that may be a conversation that we have to have, right? And I think Jalen Milroe is probably teetering one way or the other, right? His running ability still gives him a leg up. I feel like on those guys, right? And then kind of Shedeur and Cam are kind of in a class of their own, right? But we had that conversation, right? Maybe tearing off the quarterbacks after these type of weeks. So with the Quinn Ewers situation, I agree. Like I was hoping to see Michigan Quinn Ewers, right? And this is kind of the Jekyll and Hyde type of situation where it happened and it happened fast, right? It's almost like Georgia did to Texas what Bama did to Georgia, right? And just blitzed them. Like, and I'm not saying like that's the play call, but like blitzed them as far as just jumped right on top of them and got on them early. And I think Carson Beck had 2 interceptions in like the first quarter and a half. And then I think Georgia was still up 20-0. I'm like, how is this possible? Like, I was confused. I'm like, how did he throw 2 picks and y'all still up in the first quarter, almost 20-0, right? Like that was a confusing situation. But DP, as talk about Quinn Ewers falling, we have to talk about the opposite side of that, and that's Cade Klubnik rising that much, right? He at QB3, and we've talked about him. I think sparingly could probably be the proper word, right? But I want to talk about Cade Klubnik and why he's risen so much, especially over these past few weeks. If you could just go ahead and have that conversation.
Man, I think when you look at what he's able to do against, Virginia, 25-35, 308 yards passing, 66% completion, 3 passing touchdowns. He had the 1 interception, but he's got 20 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing, so 24 total touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. And like the way he's playing, he's leading this team the way you hoped he would. They have weapons from Phil Maffa to Jake Brenningstool. They talked about it on the broadcast how last week Jake Brenningstool had over 100 yards last week, but Dabo Swinney even said, going back to the tape, and I agree with Dabo, he could have way more than he did. And even in that game Saturday, like Cade didn't attack down the field one-on-one when he had him against a safety, and Jake was wide open. But you just see a guy that like he's making accurate throws against, I think it was against Wake Forest the week before. He had like there was in the high red, it was a scissors concept, post corner from the slot against cover 2. He threw a whole shot for a touchdown. I was like, yeah, last year's Cade Klubnik isn't throwing that ball, Keith. He's going to pat it. He's going to hold it. He's not going to trust it. And he's going to get sacked, force fumble, whatever. He's playing with confidence, not just with his teammates and trusting his receivers, but he's trusting himself. And now it's like to the point where you could tell the game slowed down for him, and he's just playing ball. He's not trying to defeat the ghost that is DJU and prove. He's not trying to do any of that now. What it looks like, and talking to people close to the program, they said, listen, like he's preparing differently. He's preparing like a veteran quarterback, getting ready for the opposition at a way he didn't do last year. So hearing those things, and then you see it transform or translate to the field. I love what I'm seeing from Cade. And we talked about it. Cade's probably going to get recruited back by Dabo. But in this particular situation, with the top of the class, so those guys at 3, 4, and 5 playing the way they're playing and you playing the way you're playing, you might have a case to say, let me just ask the NFL draft board and say, what is my grade if he continues to play like this? Because if you get a late first, early second, and that's before Senior Bowl, Combine, you think about if I'm Cade and I decide to declare, kid, I'm going to the Senior Bowl. I'm going to go rip the Senior Bowl. Then I'm going to go to the Combine. I'm going to run. I'm going to throw. I'm going to compete. I'm going to interview well. And now I could potentially move myself into the first round.
Yeah, I agree with that, DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. What is coming up next? We are talking about money makers and bag farmers, right? Those prospects that made themselves some money and which guys lost themselves a few dollars and slid down draft boards, and we have quite a few. So we're going to talk about this coming up next.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Guys, there are times when you don't feel like your full self, like you were hiding behind a mask. And I understand that we're in October, it's Halloween season, and yes, wearing masks and costumes is normal. But some of us feel like we're wearing a mask and hiding more often than we want to at work, in social settings, and even around our own family. Depression can do that to you. Take it from somebody with experience. I know how hard it is to be who you want to be when you don't feel like that person and you put the mask up to show everyone you're happy when you're really not. Therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself so you can take off the mask, because masks should be for Halloween fun and not for our emotions. Guys, if you think about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. All right, take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/loggedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/loggedon. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Guys, simple. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free. That's right, 40 FREE free online courses, including Constitution 101, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. Guys, you can get in on all of this. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. hillsdale.edu/locked-on. Money makers and bag fumblers, aka stock up, stock down. Keith, this is a guy we've been waiting. We were hoping to see him have the game he had. James Pierce Jr. for Tennessee against Alabama. Like, he showed up, and I remember watching the game, and I was like, I can't wait till the numbers come out. I really need to see just what all he did in this game. 2 sacks accounted for, QB hit, 6 pressures. He ranked second on the team in pass rush win rate with almost 20%. You know what I mean? Like, he was out there. He was like 19.4 and that he played 36 pass or 32 pass rush snaps in this game. He was out there winning consistently in the backfield, and it was like, all right, you look at the numbers, you look at the tape, the past couple of weeks, and most of the season felt like he was having multiple pressures and hurries each week. But this was the game he closed the deal. And like he could, and it felt like, and I was wondering, I said, okay, can he keep Milroe in the pocket? Can he be one of the guys that makes Milroe uncomfortable and heats him up all game? James Pierce Jr. did that. He looked like one of the better pass rushers in college football, the guy that we thought we were going to see from the jump start this year, coming off of summer scouting with all the production he had last year. Big game for him. I think he made himself some money and is pointing that arrow upward for himself to work back into those consensus top 10 drafts to where he can solidify himself as probably one of the top defenders in the class.
Yeah, it was a game that he needed, DP. And I think we talked about it last week, right? Heading into this matchup, right? Like, what can he do? And then we talked about, I think, the Caden Proctor, the other offensive tackle, Elijah Pritchett, I want to say, is the Bama other offensive tackle. And we talked about last year's matchup with JC Latham and those guys. But yeah, it was a good performance, DP. It was a much needed performance. And guess what? You went big game hunting, right? And I know you usually go after the smaller fish in the pond, right? Like, you usually go at the smaller fish, and then I usually do the big game, the big fish thing. But I'm glad you went James Pierce, so that way I don't have no type of way, right? I'm going big fish hunting too. I'm talking about Michael Williams. Finally had a game that we needed him to have, right? It just showed that dominance. And because I tweeted this out, right? It was one NFL Sunday player versus another NFL Sunday player, meaning his matchup versus Calvin Banks. That's 2 NFL guys. That's what you want to see as an NFL talent evaluator, right? When we get up here and we do this and we evaluate these prospects, it's those type of matchups that we want to see. Hey, we feel like Calvin Banks is a first rounder, right? Okay, Michael Williams, what are you going to do in this matchup? And I want just something to be able to buy into, because I feel like if the comps, and I told you, my comp for Michael Williams is Rashawn Gary. I think that's who he is. Some people comps for Michael Williams is why why am I
Trayvon
Walker? I'm sorry. I was, there's some people comps, right?
Yeah.
And the parallels or the collegiate parallels to the draft process, DP, could be that. Remember, Trayvon Walker, I believe he didn't have a lot of sack production coming out of Georgia, right? Because he did so many different things, but he just had a couple flash moments and high leverage moments that people were able to buy into. And so for Michael Williams, hey, you went from maybe people feeling comfortable with putting you at pick 20 and kind of out of the way to now you're probably back in the top 10 just with that one performance, because everybody's sitting there like, see, this is what we were talking about, right? Like, this is the stuff that we liked a lot. So I went with Michael Williams. And then one other guy just to throw in there real quick, Louisville wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks. I think he's at somewhere around 550 yards receiving for the season, really close to finishing with 1,000, right? Like if you just double this, he's probably gonna come close to finish with 1,000. And he gave Miami DBs problems, right? And it's because, look, this is a kid, I believe he was at Alabama, right? He's been a part of the 7-on-7 circuit. He's been playing in high leverage moments, like playing against Miami. He's been playing against those boys his whole life. I want to say he's from Miami, if I'm not mistaken. He's from that South Florida area. I can't remember if he went to Miami Northwestern or not, but yeah, just another prospect, wide receiver, balling out, doing this thing. So definitely somebody to keep eyes on.
No, Brooks is the 6'3", 195. He showed vertical speed. Yeah, they really didn't have an answer for him. You know what I mean? And crazy enough, Keith, you kind of queued me up because while you talked about him, I want to talk about his quarterback, Tyler Shuck.
One second, DP. I just wanted to correct myself. He went to Booker T. Washington in Miami. I didn't want to give him wrong. Yeah, I knew it was in Miami.
No, you're good. No, you're good. You're good, man. Like the connection between those two transfers that started in different places, but now playing for the same team. Like they have a really good connection, in the receiving, in the receiving department. Brooks had 6 catches, 107 and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Shuck, man, he just played a good game. And what he showcased, this dude is 6'5", 225. You know what I mean? 31 to 52, 342 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns. And he had to throw that. I was just like, all right, yeah, you don't like, all right, bro. Like you could tell he was in his bag. Like, you know what I mean? He was rolling to his left to the sideline, got his shoulder squared, like off platform and just ripped it. And I was like, yeah, he in his bag. He feeling good about himself. You know what I mean? He's confident. Like, and those are the type of things you like to see, man. But again, in a quarterback class right now that just there's more smoke and more questions than answers. Like this could be a guy that you think about day 3, a team says, you know what? You think about the New York Jets, right? If the New York Jets said, let's just continue to build this team up, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams on Pat McAfee show, we're playing for more than just 1 year. Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But nonetheless, like if Aaron Rodgers does play 2 more years, you think about adding a tools he got like a Tyler Shuck to be able to put in that offense, 6'5", 225, good arm talent, strong arm that can rip the ball. I think day 3, 4th, 5th round, you take that flyer, and then you of course, Aaron Rodgers is not playing in the preseason, so you let him get all the preseason snaps and just let him get those reps, man. But I got to just show him some love, man. He played well, Keith.
Real quick, DP, before we transition, I know we got to talk about the bag fumblers, right? But I just want to throw a quick shout out Jalen Walker, right? And we talked about on this podcast. I'm gonna go ahead and make this statement. This guy may be the best defender in college football, right? He's playing hybrid linebacker, so some snaps he's playing at linebacker, but finished that game with 3 sacks and was a flat out wrecking ball. And we told you on this podcast, I told you coming out the summer when this guy only had a couple sacks and he was a backup. I'm like, I don't care. The process looks right? Like, looks like he's doing it the right way. So I just wanted to give him a shout out also because he made himself some money. He's like, yeah, I'm a top 10 guy. I may be the best defender in college football. Y'all gonna have to come talk about me.
Well, what's crazy is between him and Michael Walker, they had 5 sacks and 5 pressures on the night, man. Like they were getting after it. Jalen, like he looks like Carl Lawson, Hassan Reddick. Like there's when we get to the combine, those measurables I don't care about. This young man is a first-round pick to me. But Keith, what goes up must come down. The guy that we both like, but man, did he have a rough day on Saturday. Raheem Sanders, like against that Oklahoma defense, they gave him very much of nothing. You know what I mean? Like I think he had like 15 carries for like 32 yards, 33 yards. I'm sorry. He averaged 2.2 yards per rush attempt. He did have a rushing touchdown, but in this running back class, you can't have down weeks. It's too much talent in this class to have. And not just a down week, but like a week, like a game like that, stat line like that, 2.2 yards per carry, especially for a running back. that is 6'3", 6', 230, 225. It was just a rough outing for him, especially in the game that they blew Oklahoma out because Oklahoma's offense just is missing so many pieces. But Raheem Sanders, I think to be honest with you, his stock is going to remind me of Braylon Allen's stock, where it's going to be that day 3 power downhill runner that somebody's going to draft and be like, man, I like what we did here. Like, this was a good pick, good value. He may not have to start right away, but we can work him in and integrate him into our offense. I just think that, off of that game, like I said, especially when you see 30, like it was like 32-9 or something crazy like that. When you have that type of lead, you typically see teams lean on the run game, but they couldn't lean on the run game for whatever reason. And Raheem Sanders' stock took a little hit this past weekend.
Yeah, DP, it's about him because he started off the season looking like old Raheem Sanders, which is good Raheem Sanders. And then it's like now he's kind of hit that throreshold where he looks like new Raheem Sanders, which is older Raheem Sanders, which is kind of confusing, right? So you have to just kind of take it in stride, right? And I hope that we get the best of Raheem Sanders moving forward. Because like you said, I do think and you see the flashes of talent where you're like, hey, I kind of want to buy on this guy, right? Like if when he's on, he's a top 100 prospect, right? But it seems like from week to week, I don't know if it's injury, I don't know what it is. His play varies from week to week. And I think that's going to be the thing when it comes down to it, when it comes to grading these guys. But DP, let me say Coach DP. Coach DP, Coach K, we making a guest appearance. We're hopping in that locker room. We're giving out game balls coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you placed your bets. And you talk about placing bets right now, guys, for the NFC. If you go to FanDuel Sportsbook, they have the NFL conference betting odds live right now. And if you're a San Francisco 49er fan, you must be disrespected when you see that your 49ers are plus 1,200 to win the NFC and be the first seed, the #1 seed for the playoffs. That is crazy to think about, but you can get in on the action. You can start with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, your first $5 bet will get you $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. To get in on the action, just go to FanDuel.com and you can get started. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Coach K, Coach DP, it's time to walk into the locker room and hand out our game ball for those 2025 NFL draft prospects or college football prospects, period, from week 8. Keith, I feel like I'm a big game hunting most of this show, talking about a lot of the big time players. I got to go to Memphis, man. Mario Anderson Jr., running back, 5'9", 205, 210 pounds, in a shootout game against North Texas. I think it was like 51-48 or something like that. 22 carries, 183 yards rushing, 4 rushing touchdowns. This young man, like he has the height and everything of those jitterbug guys and the movement skills. He's quick-footed, quick twitch, good burst and speed, long speed down the sideline, and he reads leverage well. Again, another running back in the 2025 NFL draft class that you think about. Teams that have a RB1 that need a RB2, RB3, I think Mario Anderson Jr. could fit that bill. They don't win this game without him. Yes, his quarterback had almost 400 yards passing, but he only had 1 passing touchdown. You take Mario Anderson Jr. out of this game, North Texas wins and probably wins handily. So I want to give my game ball to the 5'9", bowling ball build running back, thick lower halves. Like, he runs hard. He's like on contact. This isn't one of those shorter running backs that's like, oh yeah, he's finesse. He just wants to, shake him. No, he will lower that shoulder, target your chest, and run those feet. You know what I mean? His feet don't stop moving, man. I like what I've seen from him on tape, watching this young man. I think day 3 prospect and everything, especially also thinking about the dynamic kickoff return that they have in the NFL nowadays as well. I think he can fit that type of role early on in his career. But I wanted to give a shout out and give the game ball to Mario Anderson Jr., running back out of Memphis. Memphis has been churning out, running, Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson. They have a lot of running backs they put in the league, man. Like,
if I throw out the name Blake Watson, is that correct?
yes, Blake Watson.
Blake Watson.
I think years ago, he's retired now, but D'Angelo Williams,
Oh yeah,
from with the
Williams,
Panthers, like they put in some backs, man.
Yeah, they got a nice little running back, and I feel like we still missing somebody. A nice little running
we
back.
definitely are.
Yeah, we missing somebody. I can't remember who it is. Nice little running back situation over there, DP. I'm gonna hop into the locker room, and I'm going to the Iowa State UCF matchup, and I'm giving the game ball to wide receiver from Iowa State, Jalen Milroe. I believe he had 8 receptions, 153 yards. Now, this was probably one of the better games of the weekend too. It went down to the very last seconds. UCF had them on the ropes. I think UCF was 3-3 at the time. Iowa State is a top 10 ranked team, might be number 7 in the country, 7-0. And obviously Big 12 implications on the line, playoff implications on the line, right? And these guys, UCF pushed them to the brink, right? RJ Harvey played his butt off, almost another 200-yard game for RJ Harvey. And then they threw a curveball, I believe. I don't know if KJ Jefferson got benched or not, or he just wasn't playing, or if he was injured.
I think he might have been benched.
He might have been benched. Okay, and that's unfortunate. But Ja'Cory Brown was another former 4-star, 5-star kid, was known for his legs, right? And he came in there, he did some different things, explosive runs, XYZ. But Jalen Milroe played his butt off, right? Showed that he could be a go-to wide receiver. And I think we had this conversation about Jalen before. I can't remember or not, but he reminds you of that ilk of the Roman Wilsons, just kind of somewhere in that range. Yeah. We did. We talked about Khalil Shakir, Roman Wilson, those type of players, and he's getting the job done. And we've seen that type of build be successful. Maybe Roman, still trying to shake back from the injury and stuff like that. But Bills Mafia, right? I said this 3 years ago that Khalil Shakir is going to be wide receiver 2, right? And everybody got mad with me because Gabe Davis was there. But that's just how much I believed in what Khalil Shakir could do. And watching Jalen Milroe, I'm like, hey, he has some of that same stuff. He has that stuff to where he's gonna line up at slot and he's gonna get the job done at the Senior Bowl, right? And I could see that. I could see that happening, and people coming out of there, I'm like, hey, I like that guy. He just understands how to get open. So I want to give my game ball to Jalen Milroe because he balled out. He had a good game when his team needed him to have a good game.
No, 100%. He's got speed. He's route running. Like I said, winning in the slot. Like that was a big performance for them because, like I said, they were down in that game. Like they were down, and UCF was UCF has done this for I feel like the past couple of weeks. Like they've gotten the lead and they haven't been able to to maintain it and hold on to that lead. But Jalen, I think he's definitely made him some money. He deserves the game ball out of that game as well. And this is a team that the Big 12, crazy enough, the Big 12 is super competitive right now. Like
it's a lot of teams. Yeah, it's a lot of teams. And even you go to that Oklahoma State BYU matchup, right? And you're like, hey, there's Oklahoma State about to turn it around. You cut it on. Ollie Gordon had almost 100 yards rushing at half, and then things still just went left for him.
BYU, I think, is undefeated. Like,
that's what I'm saying. BYU, it was about to damn, okay, if Oklahoma State beat BYU, then what, right? Then it's like, okay, and then they still have to run through the gamut of conference play to where they all gonna kind of beat up on each other. But like you said, it's kind of flipped upside down from what you may have thought. But all of these teams still have to play each other, and you're gonna come out in a fray. It should be interesting. And guess what? Colorado sitting right there, right?
5-2. They sitting there, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be a very interesting conversation for the Big 12 going down the stretch because one of those teams are guaranteed a playoff spot. You win a championship game, you're guaranteed a playoff spot. So we'll see how that goes. And then even the SEC DP, we're looking at it, as a matter of fact, all of college football, who's the best team? Who is the best team in college football, DP?
I can't even answer that right now. I mean, number one is absolutely going to be Oregon, and they should be, right? They were number 2 last week. Yep. Number 1 went down and everything like that. But there's no true creme de la creme. This team is head and shoulders like this is the first year it feels like we have parity, and these 2025 NFL draft prospects are playing the role, whether it's a good role or whether it's a bad role. They're playing the role in how these games are shaking out and how these rankings are starting to look.
Yep, I agree with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we're getting into Keith's mock draft from last week. The Cleveland Browns decide to pass on a quarterback. Yep, guys, I'm going to give you Keith's Twitter handle so you can go ahead and at him about that on this week. But come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.